Okay, good afternoon once again. We will now resume. We will now proceed to, excuse me, job order costing. This is continuation of Afar 15. And we will proceed to job order costing system. Ito yung dalawang klase ng cost accumulation systems, ladies and gentlemen. Yung job order costing system and the process costing system. Ang pagkakaiba niyan, yung job order costing, ginagamit po yan dun sa costing ng products which are made according to unique specifications. Yung mga products na heterogeneous in nature, na hindi pwedeng pagsama-samahin ang cost, siyempre. Yan. Sa process costing naman, ito ay ginagamit doon sa costing ng products which are mass-produced on a repetitive and continuous process. The products here are homogeneous in nature. Like in the case of manufacturing ng soft drinks, hindi mo naman kailangang i-measure yung cost or i-accumulate yung cost kada botelya ng soft drinks. Total manufacturing cost divided by kung ilan ang na-produce, kasi pare-pareho naman ang laman nun. Sa job order costing system, ladies and gentlemen, for example, in the case of printing, nag-order halimbawa nagpagawa halimbawa ng libro si Sir Rex, ng taxation, nagpagawa si Sir Daryl ng auditing, si Sir Sus ng financial accounting, ay magkakaiba yung products na yon. Magkakaibang dimension, magkakaiba kung ano ang materials na nire-require. So, each job will be treated as a separate cost unit. Sa job order costing, ladies and gentlemen, each job will be treated as a separate cost unit. So, we are going to accumulate the cost of each job. And as a facility to accumulate the cost of each job, the document to be used is the job cost sheet. So, here is an example of a job cost sheet. And then this job cost sheet will serve as subsidiary ledger. Imagine niyo class yung financial statements. In the general ledger or in the financial statements, you can see inventory, for example, work in process. This is a general ledger account. And then the subsidiary ledger that will support that, of course, or subsidiary record is yung mga job cost sheets. Yan. So, in job order costing, ladies and gentlemen, we presuppose that each job can be identified and can be separated physically so that we can charge each job with its own cost. Ang ating cost unit dito ay yung job. I-accumulate yung cost bawat job. Magkano ang materials, magkano ang labor, magkano ang overhead para sa job na yan. Hanggat hindi natatapos yan, dyan sa job cost sheet, ina-accumulate natin dyan yung lahat ng cost na na-incur natin. Yan po ang tungkol sa job order costing. Now, let us illustrate how to accumulate the cost using problem 9 and problem number 10. This is not difficult, class. This is a simple cost accumulation. Each job will be treated as a separate cost unit and we will charge each job with its own cost. Kumbaga, kanina, nung nag-record tayo, general recording natin sa entry to record issuance of material, debit, work in process for the direct material, of course, and then credit raw materials. Yun ang GL entry. Pero, yung nakadebit na work in process, may posting tayo dun sa job cost sheet kung para kanino. Yun lang naman ang nangyayari dito eh. Okay, so here, assuming we use one work in process control account, as is usually the case, yung one work in process control account, ibig sabihin, yung work in process na account, yung account na yan ang ginagamit para sa materials, labor, and overhead. Because it can be, the accumulation can be this way. Mayroong separate work in process account. Separate work in process for materials, for labor, and for overhead. But normally, one control account will be used. And in a way, meron namang job cost sheets which will serve as subsidiary ledger or subsidiary record for our general ledger control account. Alright, so here, ladies and gentlemen, custom cabinets manufactures goods on a job order basis. 3 jobs were started. There was no work in process at the beginning of the month. Jobs 401 and 402 were completed, and job unsold for 14,500 and 19,000 respectively. And job 403 was still in process at the end of November. The following data are taken from the job cost sheets, and the factory overhead charges include a total of 900 indirect materials and 600 of direct labor. Requirement is to prepare journal entry to record the materials used. So, yung issuance ang tinutukoy po dito. So, look at the cost sheet, ladies and gentlemen. For job 401, 32 ang direct materials. For 402, 38. Then, job 403, 2,000. When those materials were issued, ang naging entry ganito. Debit work in process. 32 plus 38 plus 2,000 or a total of 9,000. And then, debit to factory overhead control, of course, for the indirect materials. Yun pong 900. And credit raw materials, 9,900. To record the factory wages and salaries earned, so look at the DL na naka-assign sa 401, 402, and 403. 24 plus 35 plus 15, that is 7,400. Plus, of course, yung indirect labor cost, which is 600. Debit to factory overhead control yon. And credit, of course, to wages and salaries payable. Yan. And then, for our factory overhead transferred to work in process. Apparently, in this problem, this is an actual costing because there is no predetermined overhead rate na binigay. Mapapansin nyo rin, yung overhead na for 401, 1,250 over 24, that's 52%. Then 2,000 over 35, that's 57, magkakaiba kasi hindi ito predetermined rate eh. Kung ano talaga yung actual na nagamit for every job, ayun ang naka-charge. This is actually actual costing. So, yung total overhead na 1,250, 2,000, and 850, yan po ay inaccumulate sa factory overhead control bago tinransfer sa work in process. At sa total na yan, syempre kasama na dyan yung indirect materials and indirect labor. So, the entry to transfer the overhead to work in process or to the jobs will be debit to work in process 4,100 and credit to factory overhead control. Yan pong total niyan. Yang 1,250 plus 2,000 then plus 850. Okay? So, yan po ang entries. Next, problem number 10. Hindi naman ito mahirap class actually, itong job order costing sa board exam. Normally, tatanungin, what is the total cost of the job? What is the cost of work in process? How much is the materials in the work in process? How much is the labor? How much is the overhead? So, yung general ledger na work in process, mayroong analysis yon kung anong jobs ang bumubuo doon. Tapos, bawat job, mayroong analysis uli, magkano ang materials doon, magkano ang labor doon, magkano ang overhead doon. Yun ang mangyayari dito, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we now proceed to problem number 10. Perry Company, job costing system. Jobs 205, 206, 207. January, the jobs 205 and 206 were started. Hindi natapos. Kaya at January 31, nasa work in process yan. Yung total cost na yan, na 16,500, 13, 20,800, 9,300, 7,000, 11,200. Nasa kwan yun. Work in process. Pagsapit ng February, itinuloy ang process at nag-start ng isa pa, job 207. Ayan po. Now, it says here that the overhead is assigned to jobs on the basis of DL cost. This must be normal costing. January 31, the balances of the inventories are the following. For raw materials, 40,000. For finished goods, 85. Then for work in process, ito po yun. Yan. Magtataka kayo, bakit di nilagay dyan? Pag tanong sa inyo, ito yan eh. 205 and 206. Okay? Here are the requirements now for February. Prepare an entry to record the issue of materials into production. In the case of materials, it is not necessary to make a separate entry. In direct materials used during February totaled 4,000. So here is the entry for the issuance of materials. February, job 206 and 207 lang yung na-issuehan. Si 205, hindi na nag-require ng materials. Ibig sabihin, complete as to materials na. Ito po, 8,2 and 21,300. So, debit to work in process. That is 29,500. Then, for the indirect material na 4,000, debit to factory overhead control, 4,000. And of course, a credit to raw materials for 33,500. Now for our labor, direct labor. Ito po, sa may A number 2. Prepare an entry to record the incurrence of labor cost. And the indirect labor cost is 8,000 for February. Okay, so makikita nyo itong 4,000, 6,000, and 10,000 doon sa job cost sheet ng February. Okay, 205, 206, 207 respectively, 4,000, 6,000, and 10,000. So ang total direct labor cost incurred for February is 20,000. And then yung indirect labor cost na 8,000. So debit work in process, 20,000. Debit to factory overhead control, 8,000, and credit to salaries and wages payable, 28,000. Okay? Next, for A number 3, which is the incurred factory overhead, prepare an entry to record incurrence of 19,000 in various actual overhead. We will credit accounts payable, debit to factory overhead control, 19,000, and credit to accounts payable. Credit to accounts payable. Okay? Next. Requirement letter B. What apparent predetermined overhead rate does the company use to assign overhead cost to jobs? And using this rate, prepare journal entry to record the application of overhead cost to jobs for February. Okay, so sabi kanina, the overhead is applied on the basis of DL cost. Pag hindi binigay yung estimated or budgeted overhead at saka budgeted DL cost, Kasi ang pag-compute ng overhead rate, ladies and gentlemen, estimated or budgeted overhead divided by the estimated capacity, which is normally the normal capacity. But if that is not given, tignan nyo yung jobs last month, kung magkano yung naka-apply na overhead doon. Kasi kung may predetermined, pare-pareho ang percentage ng application dyan. For example, 205, 20,800 over 13,000 or 11,200 over 7,000 or pwede nyong itotal 20,800 plus 11,200 over 13,000 and 7,000. Yun po yung overhead rate. Yun po yung overhead rate. So in this case, ito po ang computation nating predetermined overhead rate. Ayan. The total overhead applied to jobs last month ay 20,800 plus 11,200. So that's 32,000 over 20,000 DL cost. So that is 160% of direct labor cost. That is our predetermined overhead rate. So our entry now to record application of overhead, ang ating direct labor for the month of February, na-record natin kanina, ito 20,000. So 1.6 times 1.6 or 160%. Debit work in process, 32,000. Credit applied factory overhead, 32,000. Okay? So, kompleto na tayo ng entries. Ngayon, isummarize natin sa cost sheet. 205, 206, 207. 205 and 206 had been in the process last month. And the accumulated cost is this, 50,300 for 205, 27,500 for 206. That's the beginning work in process actually. Ito yung cost incurred during February. Ito yung total manufacturing cost. Actually, for the period, plus work in process beginning equals total manufacturing, equals total cost of goods placed in process. Then minus work in process end. Kung sino man dyan, ang work in process end, ang maiiwan doon actually yung cost of goods manufactured. Na pagdating sa job costing, since identifiable naman yan, dahil ina-accumulate na natin yung cost kada job, madaling i-identify yon kung ano ang CGM at kung ano ang work in process end. So, the total cost of job 205 as of February 28 is here, 60,700. Itong applied overhead using the rate class na 160% of DL. For example, 1.6 times 4,000, 1.6 times 6,000, 1.6 times 10,000. Ayan. So ito, 10,400, 23,800, 47,300. Yan yung cost incurred during February. So total cost accumulated as of February 28, yan po, 60,700, 51,300, and 47,300. And it says that job 205 natapos daw. So we will transfer that now to finished goods. Debit to finished goods, 60,700. Credit to work in process, 60,700. So itong 51,300 at 47,300, yan ang matitirang balanse ng work in process, which is 98,600. 98,600. If you're going to go back to your entries, makikita nyo naman yan ganito, 29,500 debit, 20,000 debit, 32,000 debit, credit, 60,700, tapos may beginning na itong 5,300 and 27,500. So, ang magiging ending nyo dyan, 98,600, which is the cost of 206 and 207, of course. So, you can see that the work in process will be analyzed into jobs. I mean, which jobs? 206, 207. Then each job, there will be analysis magkano ang DL, DM, at saka overhead. Etong 27.5 na beginning, may analysis din yan, class, ha? Magkano ang DM, DL, tsaka overhead. Kasi pag in-accumulate mo yan, ito total mo, pwedeng itanong, magkano ang total direct materials for the job? Yan. Yan po ang ating analysis ng work in process, analyze into which jobs, and then the job cost analyzed into materials, labor, and factory overhead. Look at this, ano? Kasi karaniwan sa job costing, yan ang tanong eh. Ito, may sagot na to, class, actually, you know. If you will be needing this, you can obtain from this stuff. But just to illustrate how is the analysis ng ating job cost, ano? Look at this. We will use this number 12, multiple choice, number 12. Yan. GU company uses a job order cost system. The following debits and credits appeared in the work in process account. So balance of 4,000, then 24 for materials, 16,000 for labor, 12,800 for overhead, and then to finish goods, 48,000. Ang entry dyan, credit to work in process, debit to finished goods. Kaya, 4,000 plus 24,000 plus 16,000 plus 12,800 minus 48,000, ang balance ng ating ending work in process dyan, 8,800. Siyempre, yung 8,800 na yan, cost ng job number 5, isang job lang, may breakdown yon, may materials yon, may labor yon, may overhead yon. Ang labor daw niyan, 2,000. Ang overhead is applied at 80% of DL cost. So, 80% ng 2,000, that's 1,600. So, 8,800 minus 2,000 at minus 1,600, yan po yung ating direct materials charged to job number 5 na 5,200. Yan po ang mga mangyayaring analysis na gagawin ninyo based sa aking observation sa mga tanong sa board exam. Karaniwan ganyan. Analysis ng work in process end. Kung anong job yon at kung magkano ang element ng manufacturing cost for each job. So, problem number 13, same nature of the problem, ano? You determine the ending work in process. In this case, 10 plus 60 plus 40 plus 32. That's the 142 minus 120. So, 22,000 po yung ending work in process dyan. Yung 22,000 na yan ay comprised of DL na 5,000. So, minus 5,000. Minus overhead, which is 80% of DL, o di minus 4,000. Siyempre, yung balance na 13,000, yan po yung materials. Yan po yung materials. Okay? Yan. So, yun ang sample ng ating analysis ng work in process end. This one, we also illustrate. The question here is, what was the cost of jobs completed in January? Well, that's very simple. Para ka lang magko-compute ng yung ordinary computation ng cost of goods manufactured. Wala naman kasing breakdown kung anong jobs ang mga yan. So, direct materials, 90 plus the DL 107 plus applied overhead ang kukunin nyo class. Kung yan ay normal costing. So, ang applied overhead dyan, 113,000. Yun ang nakadebit sa work in process. And then it says, neither beginning nor ending inventory in work in process. Ibig sabihin, natapos lahat. So, ang cost of jobs completed, 310. Ngayon, kung may over or under applied dyan, pag nabenta yan, doon yaano sa cost, kung ang over or under applied ay mayroon, sa cost of goods sold natin i-adjust yun. Okay? Yan po. Here is another case of analysis or analysis ng ending work in process. The ending balance of the work in process you have to determine first. So 24,000 yung beginning plus 70 plus 60 plus the applied overhead na 48. Then minus the cost of goods manufactured, which is 185,000. You have ending balance na 17,000. 17,000, mayroon yang 5,600 na overhead. So minus 5,600. And then determine DL. Overhead is 80% ng DL. As you can see, yung applied overhead, 48 over 60, so that's 80%. So, 5,600 over 0.8, that's 7,000. Minus 7,000 DL, so 4,400. Dito, mag-ingat kayo dito. Baka mamaya, ang ibigay dyan, yung actual overhead, kung mayroong overhead rate na binigay, syempre, hindi nyo kukunin yun, ha? Dapat yung ating applied ang kukunin. Kasi pag binigay dyan ay actual overhead, tapos may binigay na predetermined overhead rate, o syempre, yung applied overhead ang kukunin nyo lagi, class. Okay? Yan. There's one actually here na baka malito kayo na this one 70%. Anyway, so we go back, class, to our problem solving ng job order costing. Okay na tayo sa normal costing, actual costing, job order costing without losses. Now, we will proceed to losses in job order costing. We proceed to accounting for losses in job order costing. Ito po. The types of losses in job order costing are the following. Spoiled goods or spoilage, Yan. Then, we have defective goods. We have scrap. We have waste. The difference between spoilage and defective ay ito po. Spoiled goods cannot be reworked economically or physically. So, pag spoiled, it cannot be converted into good units. Swerte mo kung yung spoilage mo ay may salvage value pa. It will be sold as seconds. It cannot be reworked physically. Diba, sirang-sira na talaga. Hindi mo na maayos. Beyond repair. Or it may be workable physically, but financially, it's not reworkable. I mean, economically, it cannot be reworked because the cost of reworking will far exceed the benefit. So why still rework it? You just spoil it. Yan. Yan ang spoilage, ha? Cannot be reworked. Tandaan ninyo. So matatanggal na yun sa good units. Ang defective goods naman can be reworked. At kung yan ay marirework, gagastos ka ng panibago dyan. So, ano ang loss natin sa spoiled? Hindi natin mare-recover yung cost na na-incur na. Hindi natin mare-recover lahat. Kung mayroong salvage value yung spoiled goods, set up mo spoiled goods inventory. So, the cost of spoiled units minus the salvage value, that is the loss actually. Yung unsalvageable or unrecoverable cost of spoiled units, yun actually yung loss natin dyan. Sa defective goods naman, nirework mo to You will incur additional element ng manufacturing cost. Pero walang increase in units. At walang increase in revenue, siyempre. So, anong loss mo doon? O, di yung additional manufacturing cost. Okay? And then we have scrap and waste. The difference between scrap and waste ay, yung scrap, leftover materials with further use. Either, it may be put back into the process or it may be sold for a nominal amount, of course, Mayroong tayong separate problem dyan sa problem 12 kung paano accounting ng scrap. Then for waste, leftover materials without further use. And since that is a waste and no further use, it will have to be disposed. And there's a cost of disposal, of course. That's our loss there, yung cost ng disposal. Okay? Next, we differentiate normal and abnormal because this will affect our accounting. So the loss will have to be classified kung normal or abnormal. Yung normal, ito yung mga inherent in the process. They are unavoidable loss, and since they are part of efficient manufacturing process, inherent in the process, it will be treated as a product cost. Product cost yan, yung normal Pag abnormal, these are losses beyond normal. Avoidable loss. And these are not chargeable to product. These are period costs and will be written off as a loss in the period incurred. So, normal product, abnormal period cost. So, ang ating i-accounting, normal spoilage, abnormal spoilage. Normal rework, abnormal rework. Yan ang una nating i-accounting. Ang method na pwede natin gamitin for spoilage and defective units, for normal. If the loss is normal, we can apply either this method, apply to specific job or charge to job or charge to work in process or sometimes charge to customer. Excuse me. The other one is apply to all jobs or charge to production department or charge to factory overhead control. Ayan. Sa normal yan Sa normal. Paano yan? Kailan gagamitin niyang apply to specific job at apply to all jobs? If the spoilage or the defective units or the rework is unique to a specific job, meaning that defect or that spoilage, it happens only in one particular job, unique to a particular job. Apply to a specific job ang gagamitin doon. In such a case, como yung spoilage at rework ay it happens only to a particular job. But it's normal, of course, It happens only to a particular job. And it does not happen to all in normal, efficient operating conditions. In the overhead rate, walang kasamang allowance for spoilage and allowance for the work. Kasi i-accounting mo lang yan pag nangyari yung jobs. Nangyari yung spoilage at rework sa isang particular na job. So, ang sasabihin dyan sa problem, pwedeng ganito. The overhead rate does not include allowance for rework or allowance for spoilage. Ang ibig sabihin nun, apply to specific job. Kung saan nangyari lang yung loss, yun lang ang i-charge. Now, if the spoilage or the rework is common to all jobs, ibig sabihin, it normally happens to all jobs. Lahat ng gagawing jobs, magkakaroon ng ganito. Ibig sabihin nun, ladies and gentlemen, sa ating predetermined overhead rate, meron ng estimate, may allowance doon. May allowance doon for spoilage and for the work. So when it happens, i-charge sa factory overhead control, not to work in process. The reason, naka-apply na yun sa work in process nung nirecord natin yung applied overhead eh. Pero dun sa may apply to specific job, hindi kasama yan sa overhead rate eh. Kaya, pag na-incur, naka-charge sa work in process, naka-charge dun sa job. In either case, product cost yun, ladies and gentlemen. Sa apply to all jobs, nauuna kasi kasama na sa estimate. Lahat na ng jobs, mayroong pro rata. May naka-allocate na doon na spoilage at saka rework. Kaya nung nangyari yung actual, wala nang debit sa work in process. Nasa factory overhead control na. Pero sa apply to specific job, kung sino yung job lang na nangyari yung rework or spoilage, yun ang ma-charge lang. Okay? Now, if the loss is abnormal, wala tayong method dyan. Talagang i-charge yan sa loss account. Loss must be written off. Loss must be written off to loss from abnormal spoilage or loss from abnormal defective units. And that is a period cost, meaning it's not a product cost and must be charged to loss account in the period incurred. Walang method dyan, class, ha? Pag abnormal loss. Okay? Now, how do we do that? Let us illustrate using problem number 11. Kung paano yung charge to specific job, charge to all jobs. Shiba Incorporated produces custom-made winter coats for pets. Okay, during December, ito po yung total production, 300 jackets. Total cost, 75,000. So if the total cost is 75,000 for 300 jackets, ang original manufacturing cost per unit natin ito. Yan. 75,000 over 300, that's 250. Okay? Ngayon, assume the overhead application rate ignores normal spoilage and that there are 16 abnormal spoilage while normal spoilage are 10 units. The salvage value of spoiled units, 50 per jacket. Entry to record abnormal spoilage, entry for the normal spoilage, and we compute the unit cost. So, ito po, overhead rate ignores normal spoilage. Ibig sabihin po, ang ating method dito, charge to specific job. Doon sa normal ha, kasi yung abnormal, wala namang method dyan eh. Kaya unahin na natin yung abnormal. If abnormal spoilage happens, the procedure will be, if there is salvage value of the spoiled units, you set up the spoiled goods inventory. Or, dito mayroon, di ba? 50 per unit. 16 units abnormal. So, the recoverable value, the realizable value from that is 800. Debit spoiled goods inventory, 800. And then, how do we determine the loss? O di yung unrecoverable cost, yung ating kasing original cost per unit, 250. 16 units yan. Yung total cost pala ng 16 units na spoiled, abnormal, 16 times 250, 4,000. Mabebenta mo as second, 800 lang marirealize. Yung 3,200 hindi na marirecover. Yun ang loss. Loss from abnormal spoilage. Charge to loss account, it's a period cost. No question about that. Now, for normal spoilage, and the method that we're going to apply is charge to specific job. Charge to work in process. Eto. Ang pro forma entry, ganito. Pag charge to specific job, normal spoilage. Ang i-credit lang sa work in process ay yung recoverable value ng spoiled goods, leaving in the unsalvageable or unrecoverable cost sa work in process account para ma-absorb yun ng ibang units. Ito, tingnan nyo to class ha. Ang spoiled goods, normal, 10 units. Ang cost niyan talaga, 250 times 10, 2,500. Diba? 2,500. Ngayon, marirecover natin 500. Ang ating loss on normal spoilage, 2,000. But with our entry debiting spoiled goods inventory 500 and crediting only 500, yung 2,000 na iwan. Ayun, naka-charge sa job. May iwan doon, magiging cost ng natitirang units. O di naging product cost, di ba? Ayan. So, tandaan ninyo, kung charge to specific job, yung loss on normal spoilage, may iwan doon sa work in process para i-absorb ng iba. As a result, mag-i-increase yung cost per unit dyan. Remove only the salvage value from the work in process. Retain the loss doon sa work in process. Yun po ang mangyayari dyan, ladies and gentlemen. Kaya tingnan nyo itong unit cost. Mag-i-increase ito. And the increase is brought to you by the spoilage, normal spoilage loss charged to specific job. Tingnan nyo ito, class. 25,000 yung total cost. Nag-credit tayo ng 4,000. Yan yung cost ng abnormal spoilage na 16. Tinanggal mo yung total cost ng 16 na 4,000, tinanggal mo yung units, physically, walang effect yun sa unit cost. Pero yung normal spoilage na 10 units, ang cost nun 2,500 500 lang ang ating kinredit sa work in process. Yung 2,000, may iwan sa work in process. Doon sa total ng 75, nandun yun. Tinanggal mo yung 10 units, pero hindi mo tinanggal ang total cost. Talagang mag-i-increase ang unit cost. Tingnan ninyo, class. From 250 original to 57.29 ang unit cost natin ngayon. Kasi yung 2,000 divide by ilang units na to? 274 units. Ayun, 7.2993. Rounded. Kaya 250 plus ito, ayun po ang naging unit cost. So, tandaan ninyo, pag charge to specific job, mag-i-increase yung ating unit cost. Mag-i-increase yung ating unit cost. I-apply natin yan sa multiple choice para simultaneous yung ating illustration. Look at this problem in here. Number 14, Rio. 2,200 coats was completed below unit cost. Final inspection disclosed 200 spoiled and were sold to a jobber for 6,000. Ito yung original cost. 56. So, ang total cost ng 56, 2,200 rather, ay 2,200 times 56. That's 123,200. Charge to specific job ito eh. Spoilage is attributable to exacting specifications of job 401 and is charged to this specific job. So, ang tatanggalin mo lang sa work in process, yung salvage value ng spoiled. O di 123,200 minus 6,000. Yun lang po, tatanggalin dyan. Total cost of the job, 117,200. At ang good units ay 2,000 na lang. So, divide by 2,000 units, that's the 58.6. Or, definitely, mag-i-increase by common sense. Pag yan ang choices, pipiliin mo talaga. 58.6. Okay? I hope that is clear, guys. Next. Okay na tayo sa normal and abnormal spoilage, ha? Charge to specific job, pero yung naka-illustrate dyan. Pumunta tayo sa isa pang requirement. Assume that overhead rate includes estimate of abnormal spoilage. Normal, rather. That's not abnormal. Please correct. Assume that the overhead rate includes an estimate of normal spoilage and that there are 16 abnormal spoilage while normal spoilage are 10 units. Salvage value, 50 per jacket. Yan. I-correct ko yung information saglit, class, ha? Yan. Okay, let me go back. So, in this case, ang accounting for spoilage na gagamitin dyan is charge to all jobs or charge to factory overhead control. The overhead rate includes allowance for normal spoilage na. Kaya, kung nangyari yung spoilage, i-charge na natin sa factory overhead control. So, here is the entry and the computation. 16 units abnormal. Pareho pa rin kanina, yun pa rin ang ating entry. Wala namang pagkaiba dyan kanina eh. Pag abnormal, wala namang kasing method yan, class. Okay? So, same thing here. Yan po ito. Pareho lang yan. Yan, sa letter B, to record the normal spoilage using the method na apply to all jobs, ang ating spoiled goods inventory, ayan po, 500, yung loss on normal spoilage na kanina kinompute ko rin, pinakita ko sa inyo yung 2,000. Hindi po natin yun iiwan doon sa work in process. I-charge natin yun sa factory overhead control. Ito po. Tanggalin natin sa work in process yung total cost ng normal spoil. At kung tinanggal natin yung total cost ng 10 at mawawala yung 10 physically, walang effect sa unit cost. Pag charge to all job or charge to factory overhead control, no effect in unit cost. So you can see, guys, that the unit cost is still 250. Ang balance ng ating work in process dyan, ito eh. 75,000 minus 4,000 minus 25. Oh, ilan magkano yun? 75 minus 6,500. 68,500. Yun ay cost ng 274 units. Pag dinivide mo sa 274 yun pa rin yun, 250 eh. There is no change in the unit cost pag charge to all job or charge to factory overhead control. Okay? Yan po. Okay, so that's for spoilage. Balikan ko yung mga ibang multiple choice dito. Simultaneous yung ating illustration. Tapos na yung number 14. Ito, class, tingnan natin itong number 16. Ito ay tungkol sa abnormal spoilage. How much is the proper charge to loss from abnormal defective units? It says that wait. Defective units ito pala. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking for spoiled units. Ito yun. Number 19. Okay? Number 19. Charge to all job ito. Or charge to factory overhead control. Due to internal failure. Look at this. The prime costs are the following, 30 and 18. And then overhead is applied, number 19 ha, at 133 and 1/3% of DL cost. So that is 24,000. So the total manufacturing costs there are 72,000. 30 plus 18 plus 24, that is 72,000. 72,000. That is for original 150 units. So 72,000 divided by 150 units. 480 per unit. That's the unit cost. Bakit ko kinumpit yung unit cost? Kasi ito, charge to all job. It says that this is due to internal failure. Yan. The rejected units were ascribed to company failure. So, hindi mo pwedeng i-charge doon sa customer. Internal failure ito. So, charge to factory overhead control. Charge to all job. Hindi magbabago ang unit cost doon. 480 pa rin yan. Ngayon, 20% of the good output spoiled. Ang total units in the process placed in the job ay 150. Yung basis ng 20% po ng good output. Ang 150, good output and then the reject. So 1.2 yung 150. To get the good units there, 150 divided by 1.2. Ang good units pala, 125. 20% ng 125, yun po yung 25, or actually 150 minus 125. Yun ang spoiled. Pero hindi yun ang ating kukumputin naman eh. Yung good units ang kukunin natin eh. 125 units po yung ating good units. Diba, ang unit cost natin 480, hindi yun magbabago class. 125 times 480, the cost of this job is 60,000. Consisting of 125 good units at 480 per unit. Now, the billing price is 150% of production cost. O, di 150% ng 60, kaya yan po, 90,000. Okay? So, that is for spoilage. Next, we go to rework. Dalawang methods din, sa rework. Sa defective, it can be charged to all job or charged to specific job. Assume the overhead application rate does not include allowance for the work cost and that there are 4 abnormal defective units while normal defective units are 2. Total cost to rework, materials 180, DL 250, applied factory overhead 50. Entry to record the rework of abnormal and normal defective units and then compute the unit cost. Okay, so itong magiging entry po natin. Ayan. Yung pong abnormal, i-charge natin yung rework cost sa loss account. Ang total rework cost po ay 480. Ayan. Materials 180, 250, salaries and wages. DL yan actually. Applied overhead 50. So that is 480. 6 na units yan. 4 na abnormal, 2 normal. So we allocate that 480 over 6 times 4. The cost of abnormal rework is 320. So debit that to loss from abnormal defective units, 320. The cost of normal rework, and again, charge to a specific job po ito. Kasi yung overhead rate, it does not include allowance for the work. Ibig sabihin nun, ito ay rework na nangyayari sa particular na job. There is no predetermination. Pag nangyari yung rework for that particular job, saka i-accounting, i-charge, i-debit sa work in process. Kaya yung rework cost ng 2 units, ayun, work in process, dadagdag sa cost. Ayan. Now, to compute our unit cost, syempre, mag-i-increase. Ginalaw natin yung work in process eh. Charge to specific job kasi yan eh. Mag-i-increase ha. Class, pag defective, reworkable ha. Normal at abnormal, pag ni-rework yun, good units na. So, 160 yung, rather, 300 units pa rin tayo. 75,000 yung original cost. Tapos, nag-debit tayo ng work in process 160. Over 300 units. Ayan po, nag-increase ng 0.53. And the increase is brought to you by, ito, yung pong 160 na dinebit sa work in process, inabsorb nilang lahat. 160 over 300 units. Ayun, 0.5333. Inabsorb nilang lahat. Nag-share-share sila. Basta tandaan ninyo, pag charge to specific job, mag-i-increase ang unit cost. Kung charge to all job, as is, yung unit cost. Tingnan nyo to class, dito sa susunod. Assume that overhead rate includes allowance for rework and that there are 4 abnormal and normal defective units are 2. Entry to record rework of abnormal and normal and compute the unit cost. So, for the normal, abnormal, pareho lang naman eh. Ngayon, yung rework cost for the normal, dahil naka-charge na yung work in process dati, nung nag-apply tayo, yung kasing overhead rate, it includes allowance for the work. Ibig sabihin, lahat na ng jobs dyan, ina-applyan ng allowance. May share na lahat. Kaya pag nangyari yung rework sa defective units na normal, hindi na pwedeng i-debit sa work in process yun. Nauna nang naka-debit eh, sa lahat eh. Overhead control na lang. And, if there is no charge to work in process, makikita nyo si entry, hindi natin ginalaw ang work in process. Wala ding increase sa total cost. 75,000 pa rin. Divide by 300, edi 250 pa rin. Walang pagbabago. Madali, di ba? I-apply natin yan, class, doon sa mga multiple choice. Look at this. In number 15, 200 motors, original cost 4,850. 10 units reworked at a total cost of 550. The rework costs were attributable to exacting specifications, so charged to a specific job. Ang original cost natin dyan, 4,850. Excuse me. Divide by 200, which is 24.25. Siyempre, mag-i-increase yan. Charge to specific job eh. Yung 550 kasi, de-debit yan sa work in process. Ang magiging total cost ng job ay 4,850 plus 550 or 5,400, ano? Divided by 200 units, kaya yun po, 27 pesos per unit. Di ba? Nag-increase. Yan. Next. Ito, number 16. Ito yung kanina na balikan na natin ngayon. The normal spoilage and rework, kasama dyan, normal losses yan, ibig sabihin yan, no? Normal losses. Normal losses. Normal loss is defined as 4% of units passing inspection. Okay. The company includes provision for normal spoilage or rework. Signifying that the method to be used in accounting for normal losses ay charge to all job. But for abnormal, of course, there's no method for that. We will charge the loss to a loss account. Okay. 4% of units passing inspection. Look at this. 1,500. Ayan. 4% ng 28,500 units passing inspection. Ang normal dyan is 1,140. Eh, 1,500 ito. Minus 1,500. The abnormal is 360 units. Okay? 360 units. Now, tingnan nyo to. The units that failed inspection required 0.25 DL per unit to rework. Ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, kung abnormal defective units, yung 360. Okay? Well, no materials incurred. Labor lang meron. Kung merong labor, meron ding overhead yan. Oh, so 360. 360 times 0.25. 90 hours ang required to rework. And the rate is 16 per DLR. Overhead is 30 per DLR. Pwede nyo nang pagsamahin yan. 16 and 30, 46. 90 times 46. The total rework cost of the abnormal units na 360 units ay 4,140. Debit to loss from abnormal defective units, credit to salaries and wages payable, and credit to applied factory overhead. Yan po yung 4,140. Okay? Next, number 17. Under Heller Company's job order cost system, normal na in the process. Kung normal yan, charge to all job. Kasi may allowance daw na naka-include. Included in the predetermined overhead rate. Final inspection disclosed, 100 defective, rework at a cost of 2 per unit, plus overhead rate at the predetermined rate, 150% ng DL cost, kaya 3 per unit, 150% ng 2 pesos, 3 per unit, or the total rework cost is 5. So, 100 times 5, total rework cost 500. I-charge yun sa factory overhead control. Okay? And for number 18, ito, spoiled and defective nagsama, 1,100. Ang original cost is 30, so that's 33,000. 50 defective units, 100 spoiled. The defective drills were reworked at 500. The spoiled sold for 1,500. Ito po ay charge to customer or charge to specific job or charge to work in process. Kaya, yung ating rework na 500, dadagdag sa cost yan. So, plus 500. Yung 1,500 naman, i-credit natin sa work in process yun. So, minus 1,500. Ang total cost of this job is 32,000, consisting of 1,000 units. Kasi 1,100, spoiled yung 100. Tanggalin sa units. Yung 50 na defective na rework, good units pa rin yun after reworking. So, 32 per unit. 32 per unit. Yan. That is for normal, abnormal, spoilage, and for rework. We will now proceed to scrap. This is our last topic for this Afar 15. For this Afar 15. Okay, scrap. Accounting for scrap. Ang pwede natin gamitin sa accounting for scrap ay ito. If the value of the scrap is material or significant, or scrap has a stable market, account for the scrap when recovered. Ibig sabihin po, ang gagawin doon, if the scrap, once scrap is recovered physically, mayroon ng accounting na mangyayari. Mayroon ng entry. Paano ang magiging accounting natin? Ito ang iba't ibang treatment sa revenue from scrap. So, ito ay iba't ibang method, Pagka-recover, mayroong estimate ng value ng scrap at ito ang magiging accounting. 1. Revenue from scrap is treated as other income. So, upon recovery, debit scrap materials, credit other income. Pagka-recover yan, hindi pa nabebenta. May entry na, may recognition na. Scrap is recognized when recovered. Ibig sabihin, kasi yung scrap, significant material, may stable market. Kumbaga sa recognition ng asset, mayroong probable benefit which can be quantified, which can be measured reliably. So, we can set up scrap materials account as an asset. May future probable benefit. Debit scrap materials, credit other income. If this scrap is treated as reduction in manufacturing cost, kasi dalawa yan either treated as other income or treated as reduction in manufacturing cost. If treated as reduction in manufacturing cost and recovered from specific job, the entry is this: debit scrap materials, credit work in process. If recovered from unidentifiable job, ito ang katumbas nung apply to all jobs or charge to factory overhead control. Debit scrap materials, credit to factory overhead control. Yan. So, ulitin ko. Ang accounting treatment, either treated as other income or reduction from manufacturing cost. Ang recognition point, either when recovered or when sold. When recovered, kapag ang value ng scrap material significant or it has a market. Dalawang entry ang mangyayari, nung na-recover mo at nung nabenta. Pero kapag ang value ng scrap ay insignificant or walang stable market, ibig sabihin there's no way for the company, for the entity, to measure kung magkanong benefit niyan. Hindi ka nga tiyak kung mabebenta mo eh. Na-recover mo physically, wala kang entry na gagawin. Wala kang recognition na gagawin. Pag nabenta, saka mo recognize. So, upon recovery, walang entry. Pag nabenta mo, ito. Debit cash or AR, credit other income kung treated as other income. Kung treated as reduction in manufacturing cost, o either work in process or factory overhead control yung ating credit. Yan po ang alternative natin sa accounting for scrap. So, the entries for this, 1, 2, 3, revenue received for scrap is to be treated as other income. The market value is stable. So, recognize when recovered yan. Debit to scrap materials, credit other income. Ayan. Pag nabenta, debit cash, credit scrap material. For number 2, revenue received for scrap is to be treated as a reduction in manufacturing cost but cannot be identified with a specific job. A firm price is not determinable until it is sold. So, when recovered, you cannot use that. You cannot account it upon recovery. You wait for the sale. Saka mo i-recognize sa libro. Nabenta daw, 800. So, debit cash, 800. Credit factory overhead control. Sa number 3, revenue received for scrap is to be treated as reduction in manufacturing cost. And 5 tons of scrap are related to special job, identifiable sa specific job. And the market value is stable. So, we can recognize this at the point of recovery, not at the point of sale. Currently, 200 per ton. Ilang tons yan? 5. So, 1,000. Debit, scrap materials, 1,000. Credit work in process, 1,000. And then, pag nabenta na, debit to cash, or AR, of course, credit scrap materials, 1,000. Yan po ang accounting for scrap. This Excel file will be made available to you. You can ask this staff if you want this material. I will send it to NFC Afar and you can access it if you want. Yan. So that completes our Afar 15. This the multiple choice ay may sagot na to class, ano. So yung mga iba sinagot din natin. Yung mga iba, I can leave it to you. Just make sure you answer it for yourself para ma-check nyo din, para ma-review nyo, syempre, ano. And you can access this stuff din, ano. But gusto nyo nang makita ngayon yung mga sagot, o ayan. Number 1, letter A. Multiple choice to, ha. Number 2, letter A. 5 tsaka average method lang yan, class. Kung ano yung ginawa ninyo sa financial accounting, yun din yun, eh. Ayan. So, I think it would be better if you access this from the staff of the NCPAR para may file kayo. O, dito pala sa number 6, let me explain, ano. As a rule of thumb, if a year is divided into weeks, 52 weeks, yun ang gagamitin ninyo. If 52 weeks minus 4 weeks, 48 weeks ang accrual nyo dito ng vacation pay. 4 weeks times 1,000 per week, so that's 4,000 over 48 weeks. Yan po ang 83.33 to be accrued each week. Debit factory overhead control, 83.33 credit accrued vacation pay. In accounting for overtime premium naman, ladies and gentlemen, normally, the overtime premium is treated as factory overhead control unless the reason for overtime is chargeable to the rush requirement of the customer. Other than that, ang overtime premium, i-charge nyo sa factory overhead control. Ano ba yung premium na tinutukoy? Yung additional na bayad doon sa overtime, no? Hindi yung regular, hindi yung total overtime pay yan. Yung premium, yung dagdag. Halimbawa, ang regular rate 12. Pero ang overtime rate, time and a half. 150% ng 12. 18 yun, ano? Yung 6, yun ang premium. Eh, kung 2 hours yung overtime, ang premium mo, overtime premium, 2 times 6, 12. Pero syempre, ang overtime pay mo, hindi 12. 2 hours times 18, 36. Regular rate yung 12, yung 12 pesos per hour. Yung 6 na premium, yun ang kwan. Additional. Yun ang overtime premium. Na i-charge nyo sa factory overhead control. Okay? Charge nyo sa factory overhead control. Unless the reason for overtime is due to rush requirement ng customer. In such a case, you're going to charge it to work in process. Observe, class, that's overtime. Kahit na direct labor cost yan, kahit na direct laborer yan, nasa overhead control pa rin yung overtime. Kung indirect labor, wala nang question doon. Wala na kayong analysis. Talagang factory overhead control. Yan. Then, for this one, over or under applied, doon ko na lang i-elaborate yung mga yan sa standard costing and allocation ng factory overhead. Kanina na-illustrate din naman natin paano kino-compute yung over or under applied. Tapos yung disposition, close to cost of goods sold or prorate. Ayan. So, prorate method yung sample dito. Ayan, so, sana ma-solve nyo ng tama ito. Okay, so, that completes our Afar 15. Thank you sa inyong pakikinig. Ang susunod natin ay Process Costing Material Afar 16. The Excel file and this one, answered Afar 15, I will send it to the staff and they can provide it to you upon request, of course. Thank you, and till our next discussion about process costing. Goodbye.